Hey guys, GameBoy3800 here once again, and I wanted to apologize for the audio quality coming up in this video. I have no idea why my microphone has been acting up. Before it was kind of cutting out, and now in this video I found that it is always peaking, and I don't know why. Maybe because I had it too close to my mouth, like here it is closer. Is it peaking now? I don't know, maybe. How about now? I don't know. Anyways, the video is a follow-up to my previous top 5 favorite whatevers about computers, so I do hope you enjoy. Hey guys, GameBoy3800 here once again, and this is kind of a follow-up video to my top 5 favorite projects and stuff. This is my top 5 favorite laptops that I've used throughout the years. Yeah. So let's get right to it. The first one is a tie between the Alienware M14X R1 and the M18X R2. I'm going to start with the 14X. It lasted me a long time, 3 years before the hinge died, like a few days before Christmas. I got it like Christmas Day, a few days before the 3rd anniversary, the hinge completely died and broke out. So I replaced it myself. I gave it a whole new back panel. I did a video on it. And yeah, it was a really good system to use. It lasted me a long time without ever really having any major issues, except for the left mouse button dying early on. Well, not dying, but becoming loose early on. And then at the very end, the screen hinge died. The specs for the M14X were an i7-2670QM that turboed up to 3.1 GHz, an NVIDIA GT555M 3GB graphics card, it had 16 GB of 1600 MHz RAM, and a 500 GB hard drive. Now the M18X was the 18.4-inch one. This was the R2, so it had the 600 series of NVIDIA cards and a 3rd gen i7. It was made out of all metal, and it was built like nails, tough as nails, and it was really, really good for the time. But I hated the buttons on it for the mouse pad. They were too squishy, but whatever, they worked. I actually had to remove the second GPU in it because it had failed. The first M18X was prone to failures as well, and I guess the R2 version of it was as well. The specs for that was an i7-3720QM at 3.6 GHz turbo, 32 GB of RAM that I used for editing in Sony Vegas when I tried it out. It was good. 2 GTX 660M 2 GB GPUs. I had to remove one of them, and 2 TB of space. Now coming up to number 4 is the Alienware 14. Just so you know, there's going to be a lot of Alienwares here, because that's what I've used a lot and what I liked a lot. And so the Alienware 14 also lasted me a long time, a few years. It was actually my main computer for a long, long time. I loved the 1080p IPS display, and I also loved the glowing touchpad. This laptop had the best feeling touchpad I've ever used. It was kind of too big for the size laptop. For the 17-inch or 18-inch, it was the perfect size, but it seemed too big on a 14-inch. But whatever, that's just my opinion. The specs for the 14 was a i7-4700MQ that turboed up to 3.4 GHz. It had 16 GB of 1866 MHz RAM, and a GTX 765M 2 GB graphics card with a 750 GB hard drive. Coming up to number 3 is the Dell Vostro 1700. This was my first laptop, and I used it for my first 4 years on YouTube. Now the keyboard and outer casing were both beat up. It's missing at least one shift key and the space key. I think it's missing both shift keys actually. But if you touch the contacts, it still counts as the button being pressed, or the key being pressed, and you can still type on it relatively easily. I keep it around with the original 120 gigabyte hard drive as like a memory box kind of computer. It's got all the old stuff that I used to use, so it's more of a nostalgia computer for me, which is why I still keep it. The specs for this was a Core 2 Duo at 1.8 gigahertz CPU, 4 gigs of RAM, an 8700M GT 512 meg graphics card, and the 120 gigabyte hard drive. Alright, coming up to number 2 is the Alienware Area 51 MALX. This was actually quite a rare computer, even back when it came out, because it was a $7,000 computer. The one I had dual GTX 7850 512 megabyte GPUs. For SLI, it was actually the first SLI notebook, along with the M9700, which was the 17-inch version of the same thing. I really love the keyboard. It's actually got the same keyboard as the Sager Clevo D900 series. So I did a review on the D901C, I think, or D9C, and you can hear more about the keyboard there. And whenever the 4 fans started to spin up, yeah, it had 4 fans because 2 graphics cards each needed their own fan, and then an AMD CPU needed 2 fans to cool it. So yeah, it was really awesome. It sounded like a plane taking off almost. I really enjoyed it. Pretty sure it wasn't supposed to sound like that, but I enjoyed it nonetheless. For some stupid reason, I put Windows 8 on it, and because of that, it barely ever started up right because it didn't have UEFI BIOS. But when it worked, it was interesting to use. And the specs for this was an Athlon 64 at 2.4 gigahertz, 2 gigs of RAM, the twin 7850 GTX 512 meg cards, and it had a 250 gig hard drive. And I'm going to give you one honorable mention before I get to my number 1. The Alienware Area 51 ALX. It's not a laptop, but this desktop PC was awesome. It had amazing active venting on the top of the case. With the fins on the top, they could actually move and adjust to how much heat was being put out. It was really cool. And I customized it with an H100i cooler, and did some other interesting things with it. I did many videos on it back in the day when I had it. The specs for this was an i7-990X Extreme Edition, 3.73 GHz turbo, 12 gigs of RAM, and a Radeon HD 7970 3GB graphics card, along with 2 terabytes of hard drive space. And now my number 1 favorite laptop is the Alienware M17X R2. Now, this was an amazing machine. It was actually my main school computer before I got the Alienware 14. It also has a full metal chassis, and it was built like a tank. It could hold and handle anything, really. This was the last 17-inch Alienware laptop to hold dual graphics cards, which is why it's actually kind of sought after today, because you can fit twin 980M graphics cards onto it without much issue. You just need to find a way to power it. And thankfully, you can just stick a M18X adapter to it, which is like a 330 watt, 360 watt adapter. It's something crazy like that. And you can still use it. It's got a first Gen i7, and you can hold up to 16 gigs of RAM. So it's actually really not too bad, even today. The only thing I did not like about it was the touchpad, and buttons for it were garbage, but just use an external mouse, and you're okay. The specs for this was an i7 Q720 at 2.8 GHz, 16 gigs of RAM. This The one I had a single GTX 285M 1GB graphics card, and then I fitted it with a 256GB SSD and a 500GB hard drive. I think that's it. Those are my top 5 that I've used throughout the years. I may update this again next year or some other time as a top 10 or something. But until then, please go ahead and leave a like, favorite, comment, share, and of course subscribe. Thanks, Game Boy Out. I will see you in the next video.